2025 marked an important milestone for me. The most movies I've watched in a single year since the pandemic. I'm not sure what to make of that exactly, but it does mean I had a pretty stacked lineup for my top 10 first-time watches list. If you're new here, I like to close out every year with a video counting down the top 10 best films I watched for the first time throughout the year, not counting new releases. It's all classics all the time, and this year was so competitive, I had to make a rule not to count any movies I talked about in my watch list video, otherwise The Killer and The Straight Story would also be fighting for a spot. I watched too many great movies in 2025, which frankly is a nice problem to have. Let's jump into it. Number 10, The Dead. The list of filmmakers who ended their career on a great movie is extremely small, but John Huston is one of those select few. And perhaps that's not so surprising. Where many of Huston's classic Hollywood peers struggled to adapt to the new Hollywood in the 60s and 70s, Huston thrived, reinventing himself right up to his final days in the late 1980s. Let's put that in perspective. John Huston's first movie released the same year as Citizen Kane. His last movie, the same year as RoboCop. What a career. And hey, RoboCop star Dan O'Herlihy shows up here in Huston's swan song. The Dead comes from the pen of James Joyce, and accordingly carries itself with the gravity of a major work, a weighty reckoning with mortality imbued with an extra power given Huston was himself nearing the end of his life. The film's closing monologue faces death with the perfect mixture of apprehension and grace, while the images convey a quietly somber mood. And even with all that heaviness, there's also something cozy about The Dead. The bulk of the movie takes place over an extended family dinner, and settling in with these characters for an evening is like snuggling into a warm blanket. Number 9, Medium Cool. I love the new Hollywood experimentation of the late 60s, so it should come as no surprise that I loved Medium Cool. A narrative documentary hybrid which deliberately blurs the fictional story of a TV news cameraman with authentic footage of events like the 1968 DNC, the film is a rumination on the nature of the camera, whether it merely captures truth or imposes meaning, and the generally fuzzy line between reality and fiction. What is Medium Cool saying about these concepts? It's hard to say on just one viewing, but more than anything, it's the cinematic freedom that I responded to the most. The ambition to tell stories and express ideas in Hollywood movies in decidedly un-Hollywood ways. Plus, as a movie directed by an esteemed cinematographer, you better believe Medium Cool looks extraordinary. Number 8, Wake in Fright. Belongs in the pantheon of the most frightening non-horror movies ever made. Wake in Fright is not trying to scare you exactly, but its story of a school teacher trying to gamble his way out of an exploitative contract only to sink deeper into debt is distressing in a way few films are. There is an abyssal quality to John's time trapped in the Yaba as he descends further into barbarism and self-destruction, and into alcohol. Oh man, does the booze flow on screen, a catalyst for and continual expression of John's plunge into madness. Watching Wake in Fright while having a couple beers of my own made for an immersion 40x could only dream of. Number 7, Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice did pretty well with critics and audiences back in 2005, but for a certain generation of kids, it was more than just a good prestige literary adaptation. It was a formative touchstone, and over the last 20 years, the adults those kids have grown into have propelled the film to being a modern classic, one of the most beloved movies of the 2000s. And fair play to them because this movie rules. The film delivers on the high production value you'd expect from a classy costume drama, but this is no stuffy period piece. No, this movie is vibrant and alive, with the exceptional cast making Jane Austen's exquisite writing sound as urgent as if it were written yesterday. My reactions to other Austen film adaptations have historically been pretty muted, but not here. When Mr. Darcy emerges on that misty morning, I'm basically ready to scream. Number 6, Ali, Fear Eats the Soul. In 2022, I put a critical reimagining of classical Hollywood melodrama All That Heaven Allows in my annual top 10, and in 2025, I'm doing it again. But where Far From Heaven kept the original's 1950s Americana setting, Ali Fear Eats the Soul moves the love story of an older woman and a younger man separated by age and class to 1970s Germany. The film very lovingly adapts the structure from All That Heaven Allows, but it also complicates it in several ways. Most obviously, the lovers are divided by race, and the 25-year age gap between Emmy and Ali is a lot more pronounced than the whopping 8-year gap between Rock Hudson and Jane Wyman. Moreover, while Douglas Sirk and Todd Haynes' films explored the stifling conformity of middle-class suburbia, Rainier Werner Fassbinder shows that the working class are not immune from bigotry. And for that matter, neither is Emmy. Though the film stresses how genuine and profoundly felt the love between our leads is, Emmy is still susceptible to social pressures and othering, prompting Ali to return her cruelty in kind. It's a film that respects the aching melodrama of its inspiration and cuts just as deeply, all while seamlessly integrating that style with the subdued realism of the new German cinema. It's one hell of an achievement. Number 5, Ash is Purest White. One of my favorite movies actually released in 2025 was Zhai Zhangke's Caught by the Tides, a 20-year chronicle of modern China's physical and sociological transformation, told through the course of a romance between a working-class couple. It's a fantastic film, but one which comes with homework. The bulk of Tides is actually repurposed footage and outtakes from a trio of earlier Zhangke films, 2002's Unknown Pleasures, 2006's Still Life, and 2019's Ash is Purest White. Easily my favorite of the three, and probably my favorite Zhangke film, period. While all Zhangke's films cross interpersonal dramas with sociological critique, none do both as vividly as Ash does. You come for the crime drama of a woman who is ride or die for her slightly inept gangster boyfriend, but you leave with a far more haunting and ambiguous tale of how people are used and abandoned, all while the progress of time marches on unabated. That middle section, where Chu searches in vain for her old lover, captures this sense of being adrift, physically, emotionally, and mentally, with an acute poignancy. And if it feels like the movie slows down in its third act, give it time. The true gut punch is still coming. Number 4, Wallace and Gromit: The Complete Kraken Collection. I've set the precedent that short film collections can rank alongside features in these lists, and that isn't always easy. How am I supposed to compare the cartoon hijinks of a befuddled inventor and his long-suffering beagle to weighty arthouse features? All I can say is my time spent watching Wallace and Gromit was among the most joyous and delightful film-going I've had in a long time. I don't know how I missed these shorts as a boy, but I'm so glad I found them as an adult. Give me the Blu-ray and a bowl of cheese, and I am a happy man. Number 3, Lake Mungo. I want to lead off this entry with a simple statement. I don't believe in ghosts. More than just not believing, I actively get annoyed when I tell someone I don't believe in ghosts, and they try to convince me I'm wrong by regaling me with some story about how one time a curtain moved at 4 a.m, and it was surely a sign of grandma's spirit or whatever. I start this way so that when I say Lake Mungo's story of a grieving family searching for the ghost of their teenage daughter is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, you'll understand the gravity of that claim. Structured like a documentary, most of Lake Mungo consists of interviews with the Palmer family, as they explain the disappearance and eventual death of their teenage daughter Alice, and the signs of a supernatural presence in the aftermath. Rather than trade in traditional scares, the film builds its horror from the grief born from ordinary yet unthinkable tragedy. The glimpses of a possible ghost in old family photos have an eerie, uncanny power, but it's that sense of grappling with the unknown, the mysteries of life beyond death, and the futility out of making sense from senseless loss that truly frightens me, that left me lying awake in my bed long after the movie had finished. Number 2, The Pirate. I watched a lot of musicals this year to prep for This Was Entertainment, and the best of the bunch was The Pirate. Musicals as a genre run the gamut from high art, classy productions to lowbrow, carny entertainment, and no movie captures both quite like The Pirate. The film is a send-up of pulp adventure stories and the cheap thrills they trade in that also drops an utterly exquisite pirate ballet smack dab in the middle, a ballet which emerges directly from the pulp fantasy. It's a perfect fusion that also embodies the best of classical Hollywood, capital A art and capital E entertainment, the two sides enhancing rather than contradicting each other. The Pirate is beautiful, seductive, and in at least a couple of moments, so funny I could hardly contain myself. This is the kind of movie that can make you fall in love with movies. Number 1, the Apu trilogy, Pather Panchali, Aparajito, and Apur Sansar. It's always a little unfair when one of these lists is topped by a whole trilogy of films, but what am I supposed to do? Pretend like the Apu trilogy wasn't the best cinematic experience I had all year? Horseradish. The films are set in early 20th century Bengal and chronicle the life of lead character Apu from birth to adulthood, and though played by multiple actors, you nonetheless feel the weight of one man's journey. A journey full of vivid beauty, of images so serene and wondrous they take your breath away, but also full of hardship. Apu is the son of a working-class family scraping by at the cusp of poverty, a poverty Apu cannot comprehend as a boy, but the camera certainly does. Moreover, in each subsequent film, economic realities come to bear more forcibly upon Apu, as the dreams he has for himself are compromised, the roads available narrow, and those wide eyes of wonder grow weary. That no doubt sounds heavy, and it is. The broad arc of the series is a sobering one. First film Pather Panchali is usually the one that gets singled out in best of lists and the like, and that might be because it was the most innovative and seismic, but I half wonder if it's also because Apu's childhood years are the most joyous, and even they are still marked by a devastating tragedy. Then again, maybe that overstates the darkness of the series. There are painful chapters in Apu's story, sure, but the films are just as attentive to moments of wonder and to kindnesses unspoken and unnoticed. Watching Apu grow into himself and strive to be the man he aspires to is nothing less than invigorating, especially since doing so also means watching writer-director Satyajit Ray grow from an extremely gifted and ambitious novice filmmaker to a master of his craft. I could have watched a whole other trilogy exploring the next 30 years of Apu's life, and I'd probably still be up for another 30 after that. But what Ray has given us is more than enough. And that's my list. What are the best movies you watched for the first time in 2025? Let me know in the comments. And if you're feeling a little mean, you can join me on Patreon, where I count down the top 10 worst movies I watched in 2025. And, oh boy, the best list was competitive. The worst list was a bloodbath.